Hello guys, this is Morteza and welcome to the second episode of my series about implementing design patterns in C#. As I told you in the last episode, we're going to spend most of our time here in Visual Studio because I think that's the most appropriate way to learn about these design patterns and learn how to implement them. The first design pattern that I want to talk about is the Singleton design pattern. Now, as the name suggests, Singleton design pattern helps us implement a class in a way that only one instance, only one object of that class exists at any time. There are specific steps that we are going to take, one by one in order to make a class a Singleton class. Now, in order to save a little bit of time, I have already created a console application named Singleton Design Pattern with .NET Core here in Visual Studio 2022. And now I'm going to, create a Singleton class. In order to, create a Singleton class, I'm going to first off add a new class, right? So I'm going to call this class 1. And then I'm going to, rename it. Let me rename this. I'm going to make this class public. I'm going to rename the file to singleton.cs. And here, let's say I have a property named, for example, some data, right? And now I can go to program CS and create a singleton or a so-called singleton object from my class. So I can say singleton equals new singleton. Let me just add, the using statement. And I can say, okay, singleton dot some data equals, 10. And then I'm gonna write down singleton.sim data in the output, right? And this is not actually a singleton class. Why not? Because I can instantiate this class multiple times. I can have more than one instance of that class at any time. So right now I'm going to create my second instance, and then I'm going to write down the sum data property of my singleton number 2. And to kind of differentiate between these two, I'm going to put a single console write line here, and then I'm going to write the code, right? See what happens. Now, as you can see in the output, we have 10, which is coming from this singleton object, and we have another 10 which is coming from this singleton 2. If I want to differentiate between these two, I can change this, and as you can see here, we have two instances. We have two instances of this singleton object, which is not what we want. We want to have one instance of this singleton object at any time. The first thing that we need to do in order to make this class a singleton class, a really singleton class, is to make the constructor private, so that from outside of this class, from program.cs, no one can instantiate this class. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say ctor, right? And I'm going to create a private constructor. Now, when I do this from program.cs, I cannot, create singleton objects anymore. So that's not what we want. We want to have one single instance. Right now, we cannot have that single instance that we are looking for. Why? Because the constructor is private. So what we can do is to create another method, another method that returns a singleton object. So I can say public static singleton get instance, and then in this method we're going to return a new singleton, right? So what happens is that the client of the singleton class can now call this method multiple times, and each time the client will receive a new singleton object, because each time we are returning a new singleton object, we are instantiating a new singleton object. Again, this is not we want. This is something that we need to change, because we want to return only one instance of our singleton object. So what I want to do is to create an instance of this singleton class right within the singleton class itself. So I'm going to say private static singleton instance, and here I can say return this instance all the time. But first, check this instance. Check whether this instance has been initialized or not. If it hasn't been initialized, first we need to initialize it. So if instance is null, first we need to say instance equals new singleton, and then we need to return the instance. Now I go to my program.cs and I delete all these lines of code, and in order to create, my singleton class, right now I cannot use the constructor because the constructor is now private, right? So the way to create a singleton is to create this, to call this get instance method. This is a static method, so we can, call this method using the name of the class. So I can say, what, I want a singleton object, so get me a new singleton object using this get instance method, right? So what will happen is that this method will check this instance. If it is null, which is the case, at the moment it will initialize it and then instantiate it, and then return it, right? So this is exactly what we want. Just to make our code a little bit better, we can create a lock here. We can say private static object instance lock new object, and here we can say lock this instance lock and then check the condition in here. You know what? That's how we implement a singleton class. And right now I'm gonna delete this, and I'm gonna go to my program.cs in order to create a class, a singleton class, and then I can write line this singleton in the output. Now of course we might need to have some properties in this singleton class, so I can very easily create my properties here. For example, I can say I need a property of type string, and it is called full name, right? And now I go to my program.cs, and after I get this instance, I can say full name is, let me put in my own name, and then I'm gonna write down singleton.full name. But after a while I might want to get another instance of this class. So what I'm going to do is to create another variable called singleton2. Again, I'm going to use get instance of this singleton, and then I'm going to console write line the full name of this singleton number 2. So what will happen is that this property is going to stay the same between these two variables. So for singleton and singleton2, both of these properties, full name, will return my name. Why? Because at any time we only have one instance of this singleton class. Now to prove to you that this is really a singleton class, all I need to do is to just run the application, and here you see that for both of our instances, for singleton and singleton2, the value inside the full name property is my full name. This way I can only have one instance of this singleton object at any time. And this is how you implement the singleton design pattern. Now to recap, what we did was, first off, we created a private constructor. This way, the client of our class cannot instantiate, this class cannot create new instances of this class using our public constructor. After that, we created a public static method getInstance, and this method is responsible for returning the only instance of this object, of this class. And the only object, the only instance of this class resides in this, variable. It is a private static singleton variable called instance. And in this, public static method, which can be called using the name of this class, first off, we are going to check this instance variable, whether it has been initialized, whether it has been, instantiated or not. If it is null, then we are going to instantiate it. If it is not null, what we are going to do is to just return it. But if it is null, we are going to first instantiate it, and at the end, we're going to return it. And now in this object, we can have as many properties as we want, and these properties will be, the same properties between the instances that you create of this singleton, class. Anyways, this is how you implement this design pattern. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If that's the case, make sure you subscribe to my channel, share this video with your friends. Stay tuned for my upcoming videos. You can click on the notification bell, and this will, help you to get notified whenever I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and in the next video, we're going to talk about the next design pattern that I have prepared for you.